right? Thanking and praising God for the way in which his counsel helps us prioritize. Let's call this chapter Practice the Messenger, as he's going to talk about the role of his messenger and not only cleansing his people, but the cleansing that helps us understand priorities that God is willing to bless. A theme that we have seen before that for whatever reason is reappearing here as we are closing out the old covenant. This time, as we say, with a new perspective. Understanding that, understanding that the people of Israel that he was challenging at the end of chapter 2, saying, where is the justice, or where is the God of justice? He is going to answer by saying it's on deck in the form of his messenger, saying in verse 1, behold, I send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me, and the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come into his temple, and the messenger of the covenant in whom you delight, behold, he is coming. But there's a question in verse 2. But who can endure the day of his coming, and who can stand when he appears? Because he is going to be compared to a refiner's fire, or one who with strong soap cleanses. He is cleansing them in preparation for what seems to be the day of the Lord in verse 5, where it says, then I will draw near to you for judgment. Talking about all that is left that he is going to sweep away in his judgment. Then calling them in verses 6 through 12 to return to him, bringing us back into that comparison between what he sees in them and what they see in their own condition. They're going to say, how can we return to you? He's going to say, can a man rob God? Which is going to prompt them to say, how have we robbed you? In a exchange that seems to really advice coming from God that seems to remind me of the saying we have in our culture: try not to be penny wise and pound foolish. Advice I good night need to learn how to take, understanding that when times get difficult, it can be easy to get into the practice of being economical, but being economical comes with its own challenges, meaning we can be so economical with resources that we deprive ourselves of efficiency. And ultimately, no amount of saving or work that they do is going to reach its potential without God's blessing. And that's exactly what they are doing here. Whatever their circumstances, understanding that he, once again, might be talking to the remnant. Understanding that, as we have seen in the timeline, Malachi seems to be one of the final prophets of the Old Covenant, coming around the time when they were trying to rebuild or complete the process of rebuilding after having been off in captivity for 70 years. Understanding that they might be in a situation where it is wise to pinch pennies, but they are cutting corners, it would seem, in the wrong places. Understanding that apart from the sacrifices that he challenged them on cutting corners on in the first chapter, they are now cutting corners in what seems to be the tithes and offerings, that portion that was used to look after others in their society. Among them, the priests, who he's already commented have fallen down on their responsibilities. So it's not like they deserve them, but it's where their sustenance or where their supply came from. And beyond that, it was used to take care of, especially in the festival times, those who couldn't afford to necessarily party with them in the times when God had called them to celebrate. And so understand that, double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that was the role of the tithes and offerings in the nation as opposed to the regular sacrifices. And so understand that when he is saying, will a man rob God? He is going back to that principle of you really can't harm God, but God cares about those in the society who need a little bit of help. So one of the corners they are cutting, in addition to the sacrifices that were directly for God, is cutting corners on things that are used to care for those who God cares about. As whatever they might have been saving in cutting corners on the tithe doesn't seem like it was actually producing happiness for them, as chapter 3 is going to end in much the same way chapter 2 did, with them complaining to God about their condition. Verse 13 reading, your words have been hard against me, says the Lord, but you say, how have we spoken against you? Verse 14, you have said, it is vain to serve God. What is the profit of our keeping his charge, or of walking as in mourning before the Lord of hosts? And now we call the arrogant blessed. Evildoers not only prosper, but they put God to the test and they escape. Understanding that as frustrated as they might be by apparently seeing the wicked escape judgment, the thing that they're leaving out is that they are suffering because they've been doing wicked things too. And as the rest of the chapter makes clear, God is simply making his way around to the rest of the wicked as he spares those who are willing to listen. Closing out the chapter by saying, verse 16, then those who feared the Lord spoke with one another. The Lord paid attention and heard them, and a book of remembrance was written before him of those who feared the Lord and esteemed his name. They shall be mine, says the Lord of hosts, in the day when I make up my treasured possession. And I will spare them as a man spares his own son who serves him. Then once more you shall see the distinction between the righteous and the wicked, between one who serves God and one who does not serve him. Reminding me as we close out the old covenant and look forward to the new, at least in our studies, of Paul's encouragement that our labor is not in vain. An encouragement that actually comes with a corresponding principle. That is our recurring theme that no matter how hard we work and no matter how well we actually do, no matter what kinds of accomplishments we might appreciate, they are always going to be lacking without God dropping a blessing on our efforts. Often the kind of blessing that gives us a deep, genuine sense of peace. The peace that's described as surpassing all understanding. Something God's messenger will make abundantly clear as we look forward to the ministry of the Christ, which is why we sometimes say, God's best to you as you go forward with him.